Hi everybody, welcome to our Green Bites for this month. So we are going to be talking about collecting native forb and grass seeds from prairies and then storing those seeds to use later. So we are out here next to a prairie that has been seeded. So this isn't a natural prairie or a remnant prairie, but this is one that's been seeded and it's been maintained for about 7 or 8 years now. So we're out here today to look at some species and collect some seeds as well. So right now this Green Bite is coming out in September. We're filming this in early September, which is a little early for our area on collecting native seeds. But right now it is a perfect time to collect because it's been so dry. So we didn't have much rain at all in the month of August, so the flowers have already bloomed, all the petals have fallen off, and now all the seed is very dry, dried out and ready to be collected. So you want the seed to be as dry as possible when you're collecting it, because a lot of moisture is what is going to ruin your seed, especially if you're storing it and you have a lot of moisture in it. So normally late September into October is a great time to collect, but right now it's a little early because of the environmental conditions. And also collecting depends on species as well, so not every plant is going to be ready to collect at the same time. So you might want to just keep an eye out for the species you want and when they are ready to collect or ready to harvest. So most species, when they are getting ready to collect, they're going to show some discoloring. So if I pull off So normally most species will, when they're drying out and they're ready to be harvested, they'll start to show discoloring. So this has gotten really dry, it's very dry to the touch, and you can see the stem has gotten discolored brown. So that means that this is a great time to be harvesting these seeds. And it will depend on the species again as well, but most of our native species will show this browning of color and this dry feeling to the touch when they're ready to be harvested. So some things that you want to bring out with you when you are ready to harvest are you are going to want some gloves. So the thickness of gloves can depend on what kind of species you're looking for. So there are some species that have really prickly or sharp seed heads. You might want thicker gloves for those just so that you're not getting poked all the time, but you definitely want to have some gloves, some kind of gloves. You're going to want something to put your seeds in. So cloth or paper bags are going to be your friend for this. Plastic bags can work for short-term collecting, but you do not want to do any long-term storing in plastic bags. So it's best if you go ahead and just bring out paper or cloth with you. And you'll want to bring out as many bags as you are collecting species. If you want them separate, or if you're throwing them all together, then you just need one big bag. And then we've also got some small clippers as well. So we don't need anything very big today, but these are just for some that we're going to be collecting the entire head, the entire seed head of the plant, and it's a lot easier to bring these out rather than pulling them off by hand. We also brought out a marker to mark the species on the paper bags, and we brought out a bucket to help carry all the individual bags in, and some bigger bags for some of the larger seed heads as well. Alright, so you've got all your materials together and you're ready to head out and start collecting, but first you got to find out where you are going to collect. So, most importantly, anywhere that you're going to collect, if it's not on your property, you're going to want to get permission from the landowner or the property manager first before you do any collecting at all. So today, where we are collecting, we got permission from the property manager to come out here and collect. Otherwise, we wouldn't be out here taking any seed at all. And that is because preserves, natural areas, and public parks all have heavy restrictions on collecting plants or pieces of plants in those areas, which includes seeds and the seed heads. And that is to protect the ecology of those sites. So most importantly, even if you do have permission to come out, so you've gotten permission, you're ready to come collect seeds, you want to make sure that you are collecting ethically. So you don't want to take too much seed off of any one individual plant. A lot of times you are going to be just collecting portions of single plants. So you don't want to strip one plant of it, all of the seed on it entirely. You want to take portions of individual plants as you go, and you never want to collect too much or come back too many times to collect over and over again on the same plant. That's especially important for plants that are annual, so that don't have roots that overwinter, or for plants that might be rare in the particular area that you're in. If there's only a few individuals in the prairie you're collecting in, you may want to leave those alone so that they have enough seeds to disperse and grow more members the next year. Or if they're endangered. And you can find out what native wildflowers are endangered by going to the DNR website. So Indiana State DNR on their website has a list of all the endangered native plants here. So you want to check that list out before you collect, because you actually have to have special permits to do any collecting on endangered plant species, and that is just for the protection of the plant itself and for the habitat that these plants create. You want to make sure that you're leaving enough behind so that there's more to collect next year, and that there's plenty for anyone else that might be collecting, so that you don't hit the particular site too hard. So you might be thinking, is it okay to collect from a prairie at all? There are some prairies that are called remnant prairies, and they are actually leftovers from what was the native prairie that was covering the Midwest area. This, like I said at the beginning, this is a seeded prairie site, so this wasn't prairie, and it was originally mined, and then they came out and they put seed here and are managing it. Both of those are completely fine to collect from, as long as you are thinking about how much you're leaving and collecting ethically on those sites, and that you're staying away from some of those rare species that might have difficulties establishing themselves in that area. So it is okay to come and collect wildflower seeds from a prairie, especially if you're taking those seeds and you're planting them somewhere else. You're increasing the amount of pollinator habitat, wildlife habitat in your area. Then it is definitely 100% fine to come out and collect, as long as you have permission and as long as it's not an endangered, rare, or otherwise difficult to establish species.
Hi everyone, for those who may not know me, my name is Sydney Hassfurther. I have taken a position with Resilient Indiana, which is an IA SWCD program. So I am covering Warrick County as well as 5 others in the southwest Indiana area. So I am going to show you guys today how to collect some seeds from some of these native pollinator plants. When you go out to collect seeds, one thing you're going to want to do, like Morgan had mentioned previously, is to label your seed collection bags. And some important information that you're going to want to have on them are the species name. So for instance, we're going to be collecting black-eyed Susans, the date that you collected, so today's date, and then where you collected. So I've got this one labeled Site 1. This can be something as simple as numbering, lettering, or names of fields or gardens that you have collected from. To collect black-eyed Susans, or any larger seed head in particular, you can do this with a variety of methods. For these, what a lot of people find helpful is to cut just the seed head off, and then you can put the entire seed head in your seed collection bag and clean the individual seeds off later once you're home, to kind of save some time out in the field, especially on hot days like today. Or you can cut the seed head, hold it over your bag, and get it closer to the camera, and kind of shake the seeds out into the bag, so that work is done for you. Otherwise, one last option with these would be to leave the seed head itself on and then pull the seeds off into the bag, so that all that you have in your seed collection bag when you're done is the clean seed. So those are 3 different ways that you can collect the black-eyed Susans or larger flower type seed heads. And then you're going to want to fold over your bag so that it doesn't spill. Sometimes it's beneficial to staple it shut, just so if you're traveling or storing long term, these aren't going to spill out anywhere. Alright, the next plant we decided to grab from this plot was a mountain mint plant, which is a great pollinator as well. A couple different ways that you can collect these seeds are to break off kind of a group of buds and throw those in your seed collection bag. Again, you can clean those later once you're at home, kind of as a way to save time and be a little bit more efficient out in the field. You can kind of maneuver these and get the individual seeds off into this bag, shake them off as well so that all you're going home with are individual seeds, or you can pick individual buds off and throw them in your bag. They're all going to germinate the same. You're not going to affect your seed viability or anything like that with different ways of collecting these seeds. It's just kind of whatever works better for you. But as we had mentioned before, don't collect too many. Don't collect too many parts of the plant, because in addition to just reseeding themselves, these plants serve and these seeds serve as a great food source for wildlife over the winter. So we want to make sure we're leaving as much of the plant in the field as possible.
Good.
All right. In addition to some wildflower species, another great pollinator source are native grasses. So we've got Indian grass here today. To collect grass seed, there are a couple different methods. You can either kind of pinch along the stem here, so you're going to fold back the actual leaf blade because you don't want any green or stemmy kind of vegetation in your seed bag. And you can pinch and kind of pull along that stem, and I've got a whole cluster of seeds here that I can drop directly into this bag, and then they will be ready for storage and planting. Otherwise, some people have found it very beneficial to use a comb. Again, pull that leaf blade back, and then you can slide a comb onto the stem and slide it up very similarly to how you would with your fingers, and collect the seeds that way. So those are a couple great options as far as collecting grass seeds. These are super easy and quick to collect compared to some other native species. As you can see, you can get an entire clump at once with hundreds of seeds each full. Okay, while we were scouting this field today, we were lucky enough to find a senna plant, which is a woody legume, a great perennial plant. Unfortunately, there aren't a lot in this field, so we're not going to take very many seeds from this. Maybe just one or two individual pods. That way it has a chance to reestablish itself next year via seed. To collect a pod type seed, you can either pull the entire pod and place it in your seed bag and then go home and pull the individual seeds out later. Or while you're in the field, you can split the pod down the middle, similar to like a pea pod. And then all of the individual seeds can be found inside on either side of this pod. This one has, looks like 8 or 10 seeds in it. And then you can take those dried seeds and place them in your bag, and they're ready for storage and planting. Okay, we were also lucky enough to find a milkweed plant today. Now this is not the typical milkweed you would see, but it is in the milkweed family, as I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. They have a really cool system as far as dispersing their seeds. As you can see down here, this is not part of the milkweed plant, but there are a ton of milkweed seeds on here because of the fuzz that is attached to the seeds. So that is part of their natural dispersal mechanism. However, if you are going to collect these seeds by hand to be planted elsewhere, once these pods on the plant have opened up, you know that they are mature and ready to be harvested. So you can pull these individual seeds out. They are still very fuzzy, and it is okay to leave the fuzz on the plant or on the seed, or you can kind of take some of it off just so you have a little bit cleaner of a seed. Sometimes this can be beneficial for storage purposes just because that fuzziness can hold a little bit of moisture. So it's up to you whether or not you want to leave it. And then you can just drop your seeds in your seed bag and they're ready for storage or planting.
All right, so after you've been out in the field and you have collected all of your seed, you can bring it back home or back to where you're going to start prepping for storage. So you need to understand that the longer you store your seed, the less viable it will be over time. And that works with any seeds, not just the native seeds you might collect, but any sort of seed that you might be having, cover crop seeds or vegetable seeds. Over time, they will lose their viability as the seeds age. And so you want to think about how quickly do you want to get these seeds out in the ground. So if you're out right now and you're collecting in the fall or in the early fall, then you might want to consider getting ready to frost seed. So you can take those native seeds that you've collected. You will only have to store them a couple of months until December, January, or February, sometime around that period, where you can then go and seed the area that you want to come up in native flowers and native grasses. And that will allow them to get worked into the soil by the the freeze-thaw cycle of frosts. And it's really important for our native seeds to get that freeze-thaw cycle because that's what they're used to out in nature. So those first couple of frosts, when either the first couple of frosts or the last couple of frosts of the season, when you are having cold temperatures at night and warmer temperatures during the day, that's going to allow those seeds to get worked in, but it's also going to tell those seeds, hey, it's getting cold and warm. It's getting to the point that we need to be either prepping for being in the soil over winter, or if it's getting warmer, then it's time for us to start getting ready to germinate. And that is something that those seeds understand from their natural cycle out in the wild. Anything longer than a couple of months, you are going to want to put these seeds into a long-term storage. So maybe you're not ready to do a frost seeding, you want to seed this next summer, or you want to seed the next frost seeding cycle. Most importantly, you want to make sure that the seeds are dry. So you want these seeds to be as dry as possible. Too much moisture, or even just a small amount of moisture mixed in with these seeds, could create mold, mildew. They might rot the seeds because these seeds, even though they're really small, they are organic matter just like plant material is. So over time they can grow mold. And then of course a molded seed isn't going to grow nearly as well as a fresh or dry seed. So there are some different methods to making sure that your seeds are as dry as possible. So the simple method is you just want to take the seed that you collect, you want to lay out some newspaper or even tarps, like a plastic tarp or a tarp that you would use for camping. You can lay it out somewhere in an area that it's going to be protected from weather and animals. So you can sun dry seeds, but you want to make sure that your seeds aren't getting picked off by birds. And you also want to make sure that your seeds aren't getting rained on. Otherwise, you can have the seeds be indoors, somewhere dry and protected, like a garage or a shed, where they're not going to get any of the elements, they're not going to blow away in the wind or get eaten by any animals. You can lay those seeds out very thinly on that tarp or on newspaper, and then you want to let them sit somewhere that it's already dry or that it's low humidity and air out, and just let those seeds further dry over time. You can bring fans into the mix. So if you want to have some fans blowing, you can bring in dehumidifiers if you're worried about it being too humid or there being too much moisture in the air in your area. You can get more complicated, of course, but if you just have a small operation, you just want to seed a small area of your yard, you didn't pick that many seeds, then you can do a garage or a shed or even under a covered patio. Most importantly, you just want to make sure that your seeds aren't getting too much moisture introduced to that area. So you want to be wary of when it's going to rain or when there's going to be high humidity that time of year. Right now it's been really dry, but we're getting ready to maybe come up on a rain. Maybe by this point we've already had that rain, so you can have your seeds laid out in the sun right now to dry, but maybe if you don't pull them in, they'll get rained on, and then that could ruin that batch of seeds. So you just want to be really careful about the conditions that your seeds are in. And really importantly, you want there to be airflow. So you don't want to put these seeds in plastic bags. That's why I said when you're picking, you want to stay away from storing them in plastic bags as you're going along and picking for too long or at all, because plastic really holds in that moisture, and that is what's going to allow mold mildew to grow. Additionally, other than laying them out on a tarp, you can also dry these seeds out in open paper bags or open cloth bags. So if you've got a cloth bag or a paper bag, you want to leave it open because you want the moisture inside to be able to escape, and you want air to be able to get into there and aerate the seeds. But if you have a bunch of seeds, you don't have a good area to lay them out for a long period of time, put them all in that bag, leave it open or leave some portion of it open, and you don't want to do plastic, you want to do paper or cloth bag. And then you want to make sure that you turn the seeds once a day or up to twice a day. So that is going to be either getting your hand in there to turn the seeds around, or closing the bag up, turning the bag, something like that, so you get the seeds moving, they're not sitting in one place too long, and that is also going to help with airflow. So you can do that in a full bag. You may not want to fill the bag too full because it might make it difficult to turn those seeds once a day or so, but that's just another way to help get airflow in there to help keep those seeds dry while they're being stored or while they're being dried out. You know, your seeds might feel really dry when you pick them, but there's probably some amount of moisture, especially if you pick them straight off the plant. There's almost always some amount of moisture still in those seeds. So no matter how dry they feel or how dry it's been, you still want to get some more of that moisture out of those seeds before you put them in a long-term storage. If you're doing a short-term storage, you don't have to worry as much because those seeds are going to be going in the ground in a couple of months. So you don't have to worry about, is there going to be too much moisture? Is there too much humidity? Am I getting the right airflow? That is for long-term storage, a couple of years or more. And don't forget, the longer those seeds are being stored for, the lower the fertility of those seeds will go. So if you keep those seeds for longer than 5 years, you can expect a big drop in the germination count when you eventually plant them. So the less amount of time you have them in storage, the better off you are. All right, thank you guys for joining us for this Green Bites video, where we showed you how to collect and store your own native wildflower and grass seeds. Come back in a month or so. We are going to have another Green Bites video where we are going to show you how to take these seeds you've collected and stored and use them to grow your own pollinator plot at home or on your property. So thank you for joining us. I hope you learned something. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us or put those in the chat. Thank you.